Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from Deltiasgaming.com. Today we are going to discuss the PvE Stamina Sorcerer build, Ricochet, in the Elder Scrolls Online Update 29 Flames of Ambition. This build is intended for players looking for a starting point and progress using the Stamina Sorcerer in PvE, solo arenas, veterans, dungeons, and modified for trial. This video will cover all the important information: gear, skills, champion points, rotation, and more. Timestamps below if you wish to skip ahead, and a written build guide in the description, as well as other important links. If you enjoyed this video, please click that like button, hit subscribe, and consider becoming a member so I can produce more Elder Scrolls Online content. Thanks for watching. Okay, let's talk about gear first, and the first setup we have is Briarheart. It's found in Overland, Hrothgar, and it's available through traders. The advantage of using this set, it's very easy to get a hold of. It's very easy to get a hold of the jewelry and the weapons, and you can actually do a quest to get the daggers, making it really easily obtainable. The set is very balanced, offering a lot of weapon crit and rewarding you for doing crit damage, which is something we focus on. Also, when you have it active, you're going to heal yourself. On a Stam Sorc, we already have some built-in crit healing, but this is going to make it turned up another level. If you don't have access to Briarheart, you could always craft something like Hunting Rage, but I would highly recommend Briarheart for the average player looking up to pick up an easy obtainable set. Another set I pair it with is Vicious Ophidian. This is obtained in Trials, Hellraw, AA, or Sanctum Ophidia. What it does, it gives you crazy amount of mobility and resource sustain. The 5-piece, giving you back stamina when something dies and increasing your speed. It's just staggering for solo arenas. So you combine something like Briarheart to give us a lot of crit and rewards us for doing crit damage, and you combine this with resource sustain and mobility, you're going to be doing very well on pretty much any stamina class. Don't have access to this. Another common setup I used to run for years and years was 5-piece Hunting's Rage, 5-piece Night Mother's Gaze solo. It still works very well, and you can either run a Monster Helm with it, or you can run swords like Agility. Speaking of Monster Helms, let's talk about the Monster Helms that I decided to go ahead and use. I go with Belargs here. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but what it does is when you drop the house, when you use an ultimate, it's going to reward you with weapon damage, and it's going to reward you with physical penetration. So my ideal setup is burning bosses down or really tough ad phases. And to me, on stamina builds, the Monster Helm selection you have doesn't really reward you too offensively, except for this one. It's a common PvP setup, but I love it on PvE. So I'm going to drop my Storm Atro or another ultimate, and I'm going to go to town for 12 seconds, just flattening those bosses, especially in solo arenas, or if you're doing veteran dungeons, it's the way to go. In today's game, there are many alternatives. One that's really popular and still really good in PvE and PvP is Salines. It's going to spawn a little bear, make a cool noise, and just kind of do AoE cleave damage in front of you. That's a really strong setup one as well. Veladreth used to be another one that's popular. Shoots out 3 spores. Not as popular as now, but if you have it laying around, you don't have an alternative, pretty good option. Engine Guardian is another one for selfish sustain, so if you're having trouble maintaining your resource pool, it's an option. And lastly, good old-fashioned Bloodspawn, giving you nice resource sustain with the 1-piece, and the 2-piece gives you ultimate and physical and spell resistance, making you very strong and tanky. Good in both PvE and PvP, but I would stick with Belargs if you have it. And then Ring of the Pale Order is a 1-piece mythic that you can run if you don't want to run a Monster Helm. Though on a Stam Sorc, you should not have any trouble healing yourself to full. So just an option if you want to drop the Monster Helm, consider slotting a mythic. Pale Order would be one to make you incredibly tanky. Again, some other options for beginners: Hunting's Rage, Night Mother's Gaze. Those two 5-pieces go together really well. Another alternative is to run the Agility weapons. They're very cheap on the traders, and you can get the Vengeance Leech set from PvP as well. This is going to give you tons of resource sustain, including all 3 pools. And then you can pair it with Hunting's Rage and another 2-piece monster setup. Very cheap, very easy to obtain. This is what I run solo. Let's switch gears here and talk about group alternatives. If you're going to run this in a veteran dungeon, hard mode, and you have a pocket healer, or you're going to do trials, you got to do this setup. So Kinraz, this is a set in Black Drake Villa, one of the new dungeons. It is insano good. It's going to reward you for light and heavy attacks, which our skills will do anyways. You're going to build stacks, you're going to increase damage done, and you're going to increase those around you doing damage. Everyone's going to want to see this big old circle. It's awesome. Think about farming Black Drake Villa to get this if you're going to run groups and have a healer. You're going to pair that with the Reliquin set if you have access to that. That's also a trials set that can be found in Cloud Rest. You can just run normal trials nowadays very, very easily in Pugget and get these sets and then work towards getting perfected. I don't have perfected on any of that stuff, but it's just really good, just the base one. Again, it's going to reward you for light and heavy attacks, which is something you're going to have to do anyways. See my other video on how to light weave if you struggle with that. You're not going to run a monster helm with this. Instead, you're going to run the Vatashram weapons, daggers preferably. What this is going to do is pair well with our main spammable ability, making you hit like an absolute monster truck. I was hitting 80k in a dungeon with 3 people with my main spammable that's instance-based using these weapons, and I don't even have them best in slot. So if you can get that Vatashram perfected dagger, I would go ahead and work towards that. Or if you're not at that level yet, just start and do the normals, just so you can get the normal version of this. It's still incredibly powerful, and it's going to do very, very well if you have a pocket healer. And the back bar weapon I run is a Maelstrom Perfected Bow. I do like Infused now. Precise is good as well, but really just getting a hold of the bow has a massive difference in the amount of damage doing arrow barrage. Now, I run 5-1-1 currently on this guy, so I run 5 medium, 1 heavy, 1 light, because I like the max stats. The reason why, if I get to 24,000 health, I can avoid almost all deaths because I'll have enough time to react. Anything below that, starting out, might be troublesome. The better you get, the more aggressive you can play. You're going to be rewarded with better offensive stats going 7 medium, but for me, I err on the side of caution. I run all divines and all max stamina glyphs on this, and then my jewelry, I run all weapons damage and bloodthirsty trait. Let's switch gears and talk about skills. What makes this thing work? Okay, Sorc, we're going to work left to right and what I use and why. The number 1 skill that I have on this is from the Daedric Summoning skill line, and it's the first skill I have up is Bound Armaments. Very low cost, 40 second duration. It's a nice buff that's going to build up stacks through our light and heavy attacks and allow us to fire off an ability, similar kind of like to a Nightblade. Even while slotting it, we're going to increase our max stamina by 8%, and our light attacks are going to deal 10% more damage. Remember, if they're running the group setup and other things, light attacks and heavy attacks are fundamental to increasing our damage. This thing on our front bar is a must. Also, if we go look at the Daedric Summoning passives, we go here, increase your health and stamina recovery by 20% while you have a Daedric Summoning ability slotted. So we're going to have 1 on our front bar, 1 on our back bar for this specific reason. Fire these off once you get 4 stacks, and you can do it at range, which is very nice for a stamina melee build. Next up, I have our slot that is flexible based on your skill level and your playstyle. Consuming Trap, I run pretty much on all these builds. It's basically a resource sustain tool. It does do some damage. You're not really using it for that. If you tag a mob with it, it will do damage over time, but also it will restore resources. It's very, very nice if you're running out of resources. However, if you're playing on a Stam Sorc and you're doing heavy attacks and you're running that Vicious Ophidian set, you may not be having trouble with that, or you're running in a group. A great option here is Deadly Cloak. Deadly Cloak is going to give you major evasion, which is nice, which is reduced area damage, but it's going to do very, very high DPS AoE for 10 seconds. Has a somewhat hefty stamina cost, but if you're going to run high-end content, you're getting better at making sure you're sustained, you're topped off, using your potions, rotating your abilities, heavy attack, think about slotting Deadly Cloak in the number 2 key. Number 3 key is Stormcalling Hurricane. It's crazy good. Low stam cost, 15 seconds. It's going to do massive area damage, physical damage, grow, and do more damage. While this is active, you're going to get Major Resolve and Minor Expedition. So it's going to increase your physical spell resistance and add a little movement speed. Plus, with Vicious Ophidian, we should be getting Major Expedition at all times, making you one of the fastest classes in the game. So if you like that playstyle, speedy, aggressive, kill stuff, get rewarded, do damage, get rewarded, Sorc is for you. Coming to our main spammable, you have a whole bunch of options with the Stam Sorc, but I'm going to tell you what I've been using currently. Shrouded Daggers is my main spammable ability that I've been using, regardless if I have Vatashram weapons or not. Long range of 22 meters, 8 meter radius, hefty stamina cost, but basically it's a good single target spammable, and it's good AoE. And you can set off mobs off balance. This is very handy in solo arenas for folks that are dealing with casters. It does grant you major brutality, which we're going to get another way as well, so it's kind of redundant there, but I love it. It's a heavy hitter, and I've found actually on this Stam Sorc, I'm not relying on spamming in this constantly, because I have so many other powerful buffs that I'm using and a great execute AoE, so really I'm using this opportunity to start the fight, get them down to about 50%, then I switch gears. Also, if you have the Vatishran weapons, make sure you're positioning yourself behind the boss or mobs. When you're doing solo arenas, 90% of the time they're going to be facing you. So I tried the Vatishran weapons in solo arenas and didn't find it that effective because you're one target, right? So that's where the mobs face you. But in group, crazy good. So once I get the mobs down to about 50% or so, Whirling Blades kind of takes over. This is now kind of like an execute, but it hits really hard up front anyways. So once the mobs get down to about 50%, I'll switch gears into spamming this, or if I'm in AoE situations and I need something in a circle, it's very, very effective. Once they get down about 35, 30%, you can play with it. This ability takes over drastically and becomes optimal to use. So I try to open up, single target, make sure my buffs are up, Shroud of Daggers, get them down to about 50%, then kind of switch in here around 50, 35%, it becomes optimal, and then use it in AoE situations. Fighter's Guild ability on our ultimate Flawless Dawnbreaker, Donnie, it's very low cost with our Stam Sorc passes, but you can use it. It has a cast time, it's a conal, does damage, it's going to pump up your weapon damage, which actually is a nice combination with Blargs. But the real reason you're using is the passives. So increasing your weapon damage while slotted, 3%, great, juicy. With the Fighter's Guild ability slotted, you generate 3 ultimate whenever you kill an enemy. Yeah. So we're going to put 1 on our front, 1 on our back bar, primarily for this reason, Banish the Wicked, because it's so strong. Don't be afraid to use this if you're about to finish a mob and you only have about 20 or so seconds and you can't build up another Atronach on your back bar. So can use it, but you really are using it for the slottable passives. That's our front bar, dual wield. We're going to switch to the back bar, and that's a bow. We're going to stick to the Fighter's Guild, just what we had talked about. Barb Trap. Why are we going to use that? Well, it has 2 passives that are fantastic weapon damage and generate ultimate, so it's going to be active on both of our bars. But Barb Trap's going to give us a huge buff, minor force, crit damage by 10%, for 18 seconds. So when you set it down, it has a 60-second duration in arms, then in a radius. So like it'll basically go trip, boop, and then it'll fire off that minor force. So you're pretty much using this at the start of the fights. Like if you're doing solo arenas on teleporters or when they're summoning, you're going to put it down primarily when you know it is. So like as soon as that mob appears, bang, you're going to get that buff. Consider this a critical buff to keep up. 18-second duration, you're going to want this thing active because we have so much crit damage, it's going to skyrocket our damage. Next ability up, for solo arenas, we're doing AoE, so Razor Caltrops is a nice one, 2300 stamina, 10-second duration, its range of 28 meters, and an 8-meter radius, tons and tons of AoE. So it's also going to have Major Breach, which is reducing their physical and spell resistance. So we're going to basically apply the same debuff a tank would in group per se, because we have this. Also, if you're in a solo arena, it's just crazy good AoE. If you're in a group, you may want to swap this out for something else because you're going to have the debuff provided for you as well, and you might want something more single target heavy, but you cannot beat this in solo arenas. Speaking of cannot beat this, you cannot beat Crit Surge. Crit Surge is disgusting good. Tons of magic cost, 33 seconds. It's going to give you the Major Brutality, which we get already from Shroud of Daggers or potions. But when you deal crit damage, it heals you for a crazy amount. Pair this with Briarheart. If you're just playing really aggressive, you almost don't need another heal because you're going to get this up at all times. You're going to have Briarheart popping. You're going to have potions if you need to. It's a disgusting amount of heals. Crazy, crazy good. Another reason to slot it, Expert Mage, increasing your weapon and spell damage for each ability slotted. So even here on our back bar, it's going to help us having this ability slotted here. And then Greater Storm Atro. This is our back bar ultimate. Its range, it's a crazy long duration. So you're going to pop this before the mobs even spawn most of the time, and it's just going to do zapping tons and tons of single target damage. It also has an AoE radius, so think about dropping the house on mobs in an AoE situation as well. And if you're playing in group, it provides a fantastic Major Berserk synergy. So you're going to want to use this in group as well. It's a very, very slick setup. And then your main heal you're going to use is from the Alliance War. I just changed the morph. That's why it's only level 1. Because Echoing Vigor, you're going to use it once or twice pretty much on an entire run. Or you can kind of pre-buff use it. So you're still going to need to heal. The other one, Resolving Vigor, is much faster, but we really don't need a burst heal because we have Crit Surge going. We have other means to heal. We need something slow and steady over time, and this, once it levels up, will be 10 seconds over time. So pair that, Briarheart, Crit Surge. You're playing aggressive. You're going to want to use this when your health dips below about 50% or so, or you know you're going to take a lot of damage. Another skill you're going to need to use is the second ability in the bow skill line. You're going to take Arrow Barrage. Arrow Barrage is going to give you a massive AoE, and it's going to go very well with our Maelstrom bow that we're going to use. So it's going to be a 10-second duration, but a huge area damage, single target, and AoE. One of the strongest abilities in the game. So make sure you use it. One of the primary means that we use a bow in the first place is this ability. Now we're going to go over the rotation. I kind of have a different bar setup, so you're not going to be able to perfectly use longest to shortest. But I kind of start on my front, hitting my 40-second buff, hitting my 15-second, going back, hitting my Crit Surge, and then I do Arrow Barrage, ulti, drop the house, light attack, Caltrops, okay? Then I get into my weaves. So light attack, weave, light attack, weave, light attack, weave. Now my 4 stacks are up. I'm going to fire it off. Light attack, go back to my back bar. It reactivates that. Then I'm going to put this down. Caltrops since I'm in range. Light attack, Arrow Barrage, bar swap, light attack. Now this is down, light attack. And that's kind of what I'm doing. So really, you're not actually using your main spammable but 2 or 3 times because you have so many buffs. See, Crit Surge fell off. Arrow Barrage fell off. Hurricane's about to fall off. Bound Armament's about to fall off. And I go back. And really, the rotation in this is pretty much constantly just keeping up your dots because they're that powerful. So come back, raise your Caltrops fell off. I get some time to swap. My 4 stacks are up. Hurricane's up. Bang. So the main thing that you're going to want to keep up at all times in terms of priority, well, really there's 2. The one is Crit Surge. If you have this up and you forget everything else, you're pretty much going to be alive. Number 2, in my opinion, is Hurricane. It's going to increase your major, it's going to make you harder to kill and faster. So between your speed boost from your gear set and this, along with your major resolve, it's just fantastic. Plus, you got the healing coming in with Crit Surge and Briarheart. I would just start with those 2 to start. On your back bar, you're going to hit Raise Your Caltrops and Arrow Barrage. Come in close for a Barb Trap when it applies or the start of the round. And then Bound Armaments is very easy to maintain. Consuming Trap comes in when there's different adds and different mobs and waves. That's when you're going to tag them when you're a little bit low on juice or health. And then you're going to drop your HO primarily or the Flawless Donnie when things are getting tough, or you just need to flatten the earth. Champion points here. I have a 1200 CP setup on my website. I'm a bit higher than that right now, but so my website will have the written detailed guide. I'm just going to show you the slottables that I choose. Number 1 is Treasure Hunter. Increased treasures found, insane for farming dungeons. Rationer, 10 minutes, food or drink. So if you're using XP boost, fantastic. Potions and poisons saves you a little bit money, and of course we have to have more movement speed. Moving over to the blue, the most important ones here, pretty much all the PvE builds I do are pretty much the same. So you're going to pick one of the 2, Stam or Magic. Well, we're Stam build. Well, we need more crit, and we need more crit damage. So that's kind of the obvious setup here. Then Deadly Aim, Thaumaturge, Biting Aura. If you don't have that many points, you can just put 10 into piercing. But if you have a lot more, I'd pump that up. Defensively wise, you're really going to need to focus on Preparation, Elemental Aegis, and Hardy. A little bit into Quick Recovery just to open these up. But if you're lower CP, I'm telling you, Preparation makes the biggest difference. Moving over to the red tree, the 3 slottables right off the bat. Rejuvenation, Ironclad, Mindless Vitality. You're going to start here at Tumbling, make your way over, try to pump up Hero's Vigor as much as you can, and then increase this Bloody Renewal for your 4th passive. The rest of this stuff is just kind of flavoring depending on how much CP you have. Now let's talk about consumables. What do I eat and drink? Eat big, get big. So number 1, I have a poison here in my weapon. This is like the highest damage producing poison. You can use enchants, but I prefer the poisons for solo arenas. And in the back, I'm going to use this Maelstrom Perfected Bow. I'm going to rock that enchant, leave that alone, don't mess with it. Also, these crown lethal poisons work just as well for poisons, so that's great. buy stat or the other food. So buy stat, if you're managing your resources really well, running 7 medium, that's the thing to do. It's going to have the most damage possible. This one here is going to be nice. It's going to be a happy medium and allow you to be very safe. So if you're starting out, you don't know what to do, you're rocking this build for the first time, pick this up. You're going to want to run the 5-1-1 setup. That way you can get a little bit higher health pool. Look for about 24,000 health to be optimal. Racial choices. I actually can't tell a big difference playing races. I have to kind of eat my own words there. Running Orc with this optimized makes a big difference. Is Orc the highest producing damage one? I don't think so. I really don't know. But Orc is a great blend for PvE and PvP. Dark Elf, Khajiit, some other ones are very strong as well. So I get increased max stam, increased max health. And when you deal damage, you heal for health every 4 seconds. Really good in a Stam Sorc because we already have a bazillion of those. Plus, increase weapon and spell damage and reduce cost of sprinting and increase your movement speed. It's a fantastic race for Stam build. I'm telling you, it's very tanky. It moves quick, hits like a truck, and it looks cool. So why not play it? Munda Stones, you have a bunch of options. But as you can see, unbuffed here, my weapon crit is 44%. So if I use a potion or get that buff, we're going to be above. With the shadow, it's going to increase our crit damage. All divines. I'm telling you, this thing, you want high crit and you want a high blend of crit damage. So really, if you're about above 50% is what I've kind of seen and played with, then I usually go with the shadow. If I'm below buffed 50%, then I usually go with the thief. Some other options to run, lover is really good, as long as you're not going over penetration. So physical penetration with the debuff from caltrops, we really don't want to go 18,000 or above, or it's a wasted stat. So that's, I have a little bit too much penetration, looks like, but keep it right around 18,000 is what you want to hit. Anything over that, so that's why the lover I shy away from. The warrior is a good one for weapon damage if you PvP and PvE a lot and don't want to change them out. And that's a build video. This Stam Sorc is a literal cheat code. If you haven't picked it up, do so. I'll have a full run on a Batashram where I just nuke everything. AoE Juggernaut. It's super tanky. The gear sets are quite easy to obtain. It's really fun to play and fast and furious. And probably the easiest one to clear this content solo arena wise and be very survivable independent of a healer. If that's your issue, I would pick up a Stam Sorc. It's incredibly powerful, does not rely on the healer like everyone else primarily. And so you can do a lot of damage and be survivable and play aggressive. Fun class. Look for another video on a full walkthrough of Batashram coming out later. Light attack, weaving, a bunch of other things. And then look at my website for the champion points if you want details on that. If you enjoyed this video, please click that like button, hit subscribe, and consider becoming a member so I can produce more Elder Scrolls Online content. Thanks for watching.